So I think my final question is a topic that we've sort of touched on, and it's around abuse. I've always been shocked about how much abuse you get. Not abuse in general, but how quickly they go to you being gay. Because if I didn't like you and disagreed with you as someone who's on the right, if I went after you purely on your sexuality, I'd be kicked off all social media and I'd probably have the police at my door. But it seems if you're on the left and you have a pride flag in your bio, that means that person can call you the most horrendous names and just really go for you in the most vile way. And they're almost untouchable. So for my first question is that correct? And my second question is, how do you handle that? Because I've had 1% of what you've had. And even though I'm quite a tough man, mentally, it gets to you. I've had a comment today on YouTube of one of my videos, and it wasn't even a bad comment. It was some guy saying, "Oh, Nick, it was a good interview that, but you interrupt too much, you talk too much. I want to hear the other guy more." And I was like, "That's a negative comment," and even that sort of gets to you a little bit. And that's not even a negative comment. How do you cope with that?
I think I've always used my family as a grounding, right? I've always and my roots to this region in particular to stay level-headed. It's very easy to get sucked into a bubble. It's very easy, whether that be the Westminster bubble, whether that be whatever else. I mean, the BBC used to always make the argument that, oh, look at us, we're in Manchester. Well, as you rightly know, all they've done in Manchester is create a BBC bubble within Manchester. They haven't actually got themselves into, any roots within working class people within the region. But I think you are right. Your assertion is right that a lot of these people do leap to homophobia. And I don't say that. I don't think of myself as a victim at all. I think of myself as quite the opposite. But even Owen Jones, he mentioned this. He had said to me, not to me, he had tweeted saying, something like the I don't agree with Darren Grimes or what he stands for, but I think some of the abuse that is directed to him around his sexuality. And I thought, yeah, Owen, but you haven't pointed out the key problem here, which is that most of them are proponents of your values, right? Most of them say that they're on your side. So what is it uniquely about your team that is so completely intolerant, right? They'll talk wax lyrical all day about progress and equality, but actually when it comes to wanting to lambast someone that you don't like for their politics, you're more than happy to tell them that they ought to be raped in prison, right? You're more than happy to tell them actually they'll quite like it in prison when they, take it only God knows where they're actually going with that rhetoric. But all of those things, that is some of the most vile, homophobia, I think, that you can actually direct at someone, right? Saying, I hope you get raped, you like being raped, you all sorts of things. You're a traitor to your class and you're homophobic and all the rest of it. And I think you just root yourself in family and friends and seek solace elsewhere, because if that was your life, and I've seen this actually with new commentators that are coming up now, don't ask us to name names because I won't, but I've seen this with new commentators that have come into the fore, and what happens is they get sucked into it and they become obsessed with looking at the comments, become obsessed with looking at the retweets, the replies to things online. I don't do that. I actually live, and this is sad in a way, I actually live quite a sort of I silo myself, I guess, where I only see tweets from people that I follow. So I don't see any replies that I get on my tweets, because a lot of it is, as you say, some of the most vile and horrible abuse, and it's not worth looking at that, right? Even if you're the most mentally gifted person, if you've got the spine of Hercules, you are still going to be affected if you sit there all day and read negative comments about yourself on the internet. It is an entirely toxic thing to do. It toxifies the soul. It's really, really bad, and no good can come from it. So I just don't do it. Now, some people might criticize me for, maybe living in an echo chamber, but I felt I had to do that, quite early on, because of the level, the volume, the sheer volume of venom and vitriol that was being exclusively directed at me for things like my sexuality, and even bringing my family into it. I just thought, I can't do that, so I don't. That's how.
A mentally well person cannot spend all day engaging the dregs of society without becoming mentally unwell. There's a great episode of I love South Park. There's an episode of South Park where one of the kids, Cartman, is getting upset looking at the comments on Twitter about himself. So he employs another kid called Butters to manage his Twitter account and print off only the good comments. So every day he has to do it. By the end of the week, Butters is a mess. He says, he says something like, you've never seen darkness like the comments Cartman gets. And it's destroying Butters. They're not even about him. And that's how much negativity, if there's I mean, you can hear from everybody on the planet. That's 8 billion people. And if only 1% of that is sending you negativity, it's still millions and millions of negative comments. And no matter how strong you are, it will get to you, because we're designed to take on board other people's opinions of us, because that's how we regulate our behavior. But when we've got this new technology, normally we regulate our behavior by our family and friends, and they have either got our best interests at heart or they've fairly got our best interests at heart. But strangers from across the world don't care about us at all. So why are we paying attention to their comments? But we're designed to do it. And that's what destroys us. It's a really, really difficult thing to manage.
It is. It's a real dilemma. But I think ultimately, there's that old saying, isn't there, of what is it? Those that matter don't mind, and those that don't matter. And I think ultimately, I go back to that, and I think, well, my family brought me up, mum especially, on the motto of shy Bens get out, shy children get nothing. And I think I've probably lived. I turned 30 this year. I think I've probably lived life with that motto in mind. And I'm not going to let some sad troll on the internet stand in the way of me doing that and me living my life. So you've just got to learn to say, this doesn't matter. It's not real life.
A real life example. Yeah, a real life example would be you walking down your high street where you live, and the other side of the road is some 40-year-old drunk man just stumbled out of the pub, and he looks at you across the road and starts screaming at you. And there's obscenities, and he's talking about, your hairstyle, he's talking about your jeans, he's talking about making stuff up. You don't spend the rest of the day then worrying about what that man said to you, because you looked at him, he's drunk and you know he's a nutcase, and you walk on by and you forget it. That's what we need to do with the comments on social media. But because we engage with some of them, we start to think that we have a relationship with them. We don't. The vast majority of them are drunken nutcases on the other side of the road screaming obscenities, and we need to treat them like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Block them out. Maybe even literally block them out, because they don't matter to your life. Life is a really beautiful thing. Life is precious and life is short. And I think you've got to make the most of yours whilst you're on this planet. So, that's the way I live my life. And if that can be a lesson for anyone, even if you don't receive as many replies as the kind of stuff that I do, you ignore the one or two that maybe you do get, because ultimately they don't matter to you. Don't let those people stand in the way of your progress and your happiness.
And that's a great place to end. And I think I just want to repeat what you just said then. Live your life, because life's short. We're only on this earth 20, no, 70 years. Live your life. Don't worry what other people who you don't care about, don't worry what those people say about you, because we're only here once and we need family, we need friends. We don't need likes and we don't need reposts. We don't need any of that at all.